Princess Lyraven stood before the council chamber, her hands trembling as she held the data tablet. 347 years she had lived, and never had. She felt fear like this, the massive crystalline hall stretched above her, filled with the most powerful beings. The Valyrian Empire, her mother Empress Kiara sat on the throne of flowing light, her ancient eyes fixed on her. Daughter, speak. Lyraven, the Empress commanded, her voice echoed through the chamber like distant thunder. Lyraven touched the tablet and holographic images filled the air. They showed Valyrian children, their bodies twisted and failing. Some could not walk, others could not breathe without machines. All of them carried the marks of genetic collapse. Our bloodline is dying, Lyraven said. Her voice was steady now, despite the horror of what she must propose. For 10,000 years, we have bred only with the finest noble houses. We sought perfection through purity. We have created weakness instead. The council members shifted uncomfortably. Lord Torrhen stood, his face dark with anger. You speak madness, Princess. Our bloodline is the most refined in the galaxy. These afflictions are merely temporary setbacks. They are not temporary. Lyraven shot back. She displayed another image, this one showing genetic sequences. Our DNA has become too similar, too perfect, too specialized. We have eliminated all variation. When errors occur, our bodies cannot compensate. We have no genetic diversity left to draw upon. Another council member, Lady Renault, leaned forward. What solution do you propose? Shall we breed with commoners? That would take generations to show results. No, Lyraven said. She took a deep breath. We must look beyond our own species. The chamber erupted in shouts. Some council members stood in outrage. Others laughed at what they thought was a joke. Lord Torrhen's face turned purple with rage. Tammin was examining soil samples when the alarms began. The laboratory at Nubusan Colony was small, but well equipped, and he had been comparing bacterial growth rates when every screen in the room suddenly switched to emergency broadcast mode. All personnel report to main assembly. Director Park Jin-woo and LT Unk and GTS voice announced, we have visitors. This is not a drill. Oh. Tam exchanged glances with his colleague Yoonhye Jin, who worked at the next station. She was an exocultural specialist, someone who studied alien societies. Her face had gone pale. Visitors? Tammin asked. What kind of visitors? The kind that don't usually come to frontier colonies, Hijin said quietly. Come on. We need to go. The assembly hall was packed with every scientist, technician, and support staff. On the colony, Director Park stood on the raised platform, his normally calm face showing clear stress. Behind him, the main view screen displayed an image that made Tammin's breath catch. A ship hung in orbit above them. It was beautiful and terrifying at once, made of what looked like living crystal that pulsed with inner light. It was easily 10 times the size of any human vessel. That is a Valyrian Imperial cruiser. Director Park said. They have requested permission to land and speak with one specific member of our colony. He paused. They have requested Kang. Tammin. Every head in the room turned to look at Tammin. He felt his stomach drop. Me? Why would they want me? We don't know yet, Park said, but refusing to meet with them is not an option. The Valyrians are one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. We will not risk an incident. 2 hours later, Tam stood in the colony's Main meeting room, H. Jin had insisted on. Accompanying him, and Director Park had agreed. Now they waited as the Valerian delegation entered. Princess L. Raven was tall, nearly 7 ft, with skin that seemed to shimmer with faint colors. Her eyes were large and luminous, completely black without any visible pupil. She moved with impossible grace, and behind her came an escort of 4 soldiers in armor that looked like it was grown rather than forged. Kang Taman, she said. Her voice was musical, but she spoke Korean perfectly. I am Princess Levin of Hausara. I come with a proposal that will benefit both our peoples. Taman bowed, unsure of the proper protocol. Your Highness, I'm honored, but I don't understand why you've come so far to speak with me specifically. Because you possess something my civilization desperately needs, Liren said. She gestured, and a holographic display appeared between them. It showed Valerian genetic sequences beside human ones. Our species is dying from genetic homogeneity. Your species has the diversity we lack. I have reviewed genetic profiles from thousands of humans, and yours is the most compatible with Valerian biology. Compatible for what purpose? Hijin asked, her voice suspicious. L. Raven looked directly at Taman. I need you to father children with my 2 sisters, Princess Nava and Princess Surima. The hybrid offspring will save our noble bloodline from collapse. The room fell completely silent. Taman felt like he had been punched in the stomach. You want me to? What? The scientific data is clear, Lyravan continued, as if discussing a routine experiment. Human Valiant hybrids should possess the advantages of both species. My sisters are already showing signs of genetic degradation. Without intervention, they may not survive another decade. Your contribution could save them and revolutionize our entire civilization. This is insane, Taman said flatly. I'm not some breeding animal. You can't just show up and ask me to father children with people I've never met. You would be well compensated, Lion said. Technology transfers, political alliance, resources for your colony. No, Taman interrupted. Absolutely not. This is unethical on every level. I don't care how desperate you are. Director Park stepped forward quickly. Dr. Kang, perhaps we should discuss this privately before making any final decisions. One, there's nothing to discuss, Taman said angrily. The answer is no. The Valerian captain, a stern-faced warrior named Rival, spoke for the first time. Perhaps the human does not understand the gravity of refusing an imperial request. Is that a threat? Hijin demanded. It is a statement of fact, Ral replied coldly. The Valerian Empire protects its interests. The meeting ended badly. Back in his quarters, Tam paced while Hijin sat on his desk, watching him. You know they're not going to take no for an answer, she said quietly. They have to. I have rights. Rights that depend on human law, which doesn't apply out here on the front. If they decide to take you by force. Hijin rubbed her face. Look, I think this whole thing is crazy too, but we need to be smart about this. There was a knock on the door. Director Park entered, looking exhausted. Dr. Kang, I need you to reconsider. Director, please just listen. Park sat down heavily. The Valerians have significant military power. If we refuse and insult them, they could make things very difficult for this colony and for human space in general. But if you agree even to just discuss the Possibility we could gain a powerful ally, but you're asking me to prostitute myself for political gain, Tammin said. Bitterly, I'm asking you to consider options. Park replied. The princess requested another meeting tomorrow. She said she has more information to share. At least listen to what she has to say. That night Tammin couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about El Raven's words. Genetic collapse, her sister's dying. It reminded him of why he had become a biologist in the first place, to help solve problems, to save lives. The next morning, he agreed to another meeting. This time, Lyraven came alone. She sat across from Tammin in the small conference room and did something he hadn't expected. She showed vulnerability. Let me show you something, she said quietly. She projected images of Valyrian children in medical facilities. Some had twisted limbs, others struggled to breathe. All of them looked at the camera with eyes that held too much suffering. This is what genetic collapse looks like. These children were born perfect. By our standards, pure bloodlines, noble genetics. Within years their bodies began to fail. We don't know how to fix it. Our best medical technology only slows the progression. Tammin studied the images, his scientist's mind analyzing even as his heart ached. How many thousands already? More every year. My sisters. El Raven's voice wavered slightly. Nava can barely walk some days. Surma has begun experiencing neural degradation. They are strong, they fight it, but biology does not care about strength of will. Why humans specifically? Tammin asked. There must be other species with genetic diversity. We've tested 17 species over the past century. Most are incompatible with Valyrian biology. Those that are compatible lack the specific diversity markers we need. Humans are unique. Your species has survived everything your harsh world threw at you. You adapted, evolved, diversified. That chaos, that messy, unpredictable genetic variation. That is what we need. Tammin was quiet for a long moment. Finally he spoke. If I agree to help, and that's still a big if, I have conditions. Lyraven leaned forward. Name them first. I'm not just some genetic donor. If I do this, I'm a full partner. In the process, I want to study the science, understand what's happening, have input on decisions. Agreed. Second, any children born from this have full rights as individuals. They're not experimental subjects or political tools. They're people. Livin hesitated, then nodded. Third, I want to meet your sisters. Actually meet them, talk to them, get to know them as people. I'm not going to participate in some clinical procedure with strangers. That is unusual by our standards, El Raven admitted, but I will arrange it. Then I'll come to your world. I'll meet your sisters. I'll review the science, and then I'll decide if this can work. Tammin stood and offered his hand. But I'm doing this as a scientist and as a human being, not as a tool. Lurvanen looked at his outstretched hand, then carefully took it. Her skin was warm and felt like silk. You are more than I expected, Kang. Tammin, yeah, well, we humans are full of surprises. The journey to Veltara Prime took 3 days, and every moment of it amazed Tammin. The Valyrian ship moved through space in ways human vessels couldn't match. Lyraven's quarters were beautiful, all flowing curves and soft light. Hyjin, who had insisted on coming as humanity's cultural representative, spent most of the trip recording everything and muttering about the anthropological significance. When they finally arrived, Tammin pressed his face to the viewport and stared. The planet below looked like a jewel covered in crystalline cities that caught the light of three small suns. The palace itself rose from the surface like a frozen waterfall, thousands of feet high, and glittering with every color imaginable. It's beautiful, he whispered. It is home, Lyraven said. Come, my family is waiting. The throne room was even more impressive than the council chamber Lyraven had described. Empress Kara sat on a throne that seemed to be made of solidified light. She was ancient, over 1,000 years old, and it showed in her eyes. They had seen empires rise and fall. Beside the throne stood two younger Valyrians. These had to be the sisters, Princess Nava was elegant and quiet, her large eyes studying Tammin with obvious intelligence. She was slightly smaller than Lyraven, and she moved with careful precision, as if each step required thought. Tammin noticed the faint tremor in her hands. Princess Surima was taller and more muscular, with the bearing of a warrior. She stood straight despite obvious pain, and her eyes held a challenge. She looked like someone who refused to show weakness even when dying. So this is the human Empress, Kalara said. Her voice was cold. He is smaller than I expected. Mother, please. Lyraven began, but Tammin stepped forward. Your Majesty, he said, bowing as he had practiced. I am honored to be here. I understand the seriousness of what you face, and I want to help if I can help. The Empress's laugh was sharp. You are here to provide genetic material, nothing more. My daughters will conceive, bear children, and you will return to your colony with whatever payment we agree upon. This is not a partnership, human. This is a transaction. Tammin felt anger rise in his chest. Then the transaction is canceled. I'm not a commodity. The room went silent. No one spoke to the Empress like that. You dare? The Empress began, but Nava suddenly stepped forward. Mother, please. Her voice was soft but clear. Lyraven explained that humans have different customs. Perhaps we should try to understand them. Understanding is irrelevant, the Empress said. We need results. With respect, Your Majesty. Jin spoke up, her voice steady. In human culture, the creation of children is considered deeply personal. It requires emotional connection, not just biological compatibility. If you want this to succeed, you need to respect that. Surma spoke for the first time. Tammin looked at the two princesses. I want to spend time with Nava and Surima. Learn about them. Let them learn about me. We're talking about creating lives here, not conducting a laboratory experiment. Those children will be people, and they deserve parents who at least respect each other. Lord Velterin, standing to one side, laughed mockingly. Respect from a species that still fights wars over resources and religion. You live less than a century and presume to teach us about parenthood. I presume to teach you about treating people like people. Tammin shot back. Your civilization might be older, but that doesn't give you the right to treat me or anyone else like breeding stock. Enough, Empress Kalara said. She studied Tammin with her ancient eyes. You wish to court my daughters? How very primitive. Very well, you will have 30 days. If at the end of that time both Navarra and Surima agree to proceed, we will move forward. If not, you will leave and never return. It was not the answer Tammin wanted, but it was better than nothing. The first week was Awkward, the palace was massive and Tammin got lost constantly. Valerian. Customs were complex and confusing. He made dozens of small mistakes that made the court nobles snicker behind their hands, but he persisted. Nava was the first to warm to him. She found him in the palace library one day, struggling to read a Valerian text on quantum mechanics. She sat beside him and began to explain her enthusiasm for the subject, making her forget her shyness. Soon they were having real conversations, comparing human and Valian approaches to physics. We are not so different, you and I, she said one evening as they watched the triple sunset. We both seek to understand the universe through observation and logic. Your species does it with shorter lives, which means you must work faster, be more creative. My people have time to be thorough, but sometimes we forget to be imaginative. You're very imaginative, Tam said. Your work on dimensional fields is brilliant. I read your papers. Navarra's face showed surprise and pleasure. You did, but they are highly technical. I'm a xenobiologist. I'm used to complex systems. He smiled at her. Not because you're a princess, but because you're genuinely brilliant. She looked away, but he saw the color shift in her skin that El Raven had told him was equivalent to blushing. Sura was harder to reach. She was prideful and suspicious. When Tammin approached her, she challenged him to combat training. If you are to be part of this family, even temporarily, I must know you can fight, she declared. The training ground was brutal. Surima moved with incredible speed and power. Tae Min was outmatched in every way. She could have ended the match in seconds, but she didn't. As they fought, Tae Min realized she was testing him, not just his strength, but his determination. He kept getting up, kept trying, kept adapting his tactics. He used his smaller size to dodge, used techniques she didn't expect, and refused to surrender. Finally, after an hour of brutal sparring, Surima called a halt. She was barely winded. Tam was gasping and covered in bruises. You fight like a human, she said. I am human, he replied between breaths. No, I mean you fight with chaos and unpredictability. Every time I think I understand your pattern, you change it. You should not still be standing, yet you are. She offered him her hand. I respect that. You have no quit in you, neither do you, Tammin said, taking her hand. I watched you. You're in pain. Every movement hurts, but you don't show it. Don't acknowledge it. That takes incredible strength. Surma's expression softened slightly. Pain is weakness leaving the body, or so I tell myself. Pain is information telling you something is wrong. You shouldn't have to suffer like this, which is why you are here, she said quietly. Come, let us talk strategy. If we are to do this thing, I want to understand the human approach to warfare. It seems chaotic but effective. The days passed. Tammin found himself genuinely enjoying both princesses' company. Nava showed him Valerian art and music, shared her dreams of exploring dimensional space. Surima taught him combat techniques and told him stories of battles across the stars. They were not just princesses or genetic specimens to him anymore. They were people he cared about, but not everyone was pleased. Lord Veltorin's faction grew more aggressive. They spread rumors that the human was corrupting the princesses, that any hybrid children would be abominations, that this entire plan was an insult to Valerian purity. One night, Tammin was walking through the garden when figures emerged from the shadows. 5 Valyrian assassins hired by conservative nobles who wanted this experiment to end. They attacked without warning. Tammin barely dodged the first blade. He shouted for help, but the garden was far from the main palace. He tried to fight, but they were trained killers, and he was exhausted from the day's activities. He was about to die when Surima appeared like a storm. She moved faster than Tammin had ever seen. Her combat instincts taking over. She was a whirlwind of controlled violence, taking down 3 assassins before they could react, but there were 5, and even Surima had limits. 1 blade got past her guard and struck her side. She gasped but kept fighting, protecting Tammin with her own body. Guards finally arrived, drawn by the sounds of combat. The assassins fled or were captured. Surima collapsed, blood flowing from her wound. "Why?" Tammin asked, pressing his hands to her injury, trying to stop the bleeding. "Because you matter," Surima said through gritted teeth. "Because my sister is right about you. Because maybe humans do understand something we have forgotten." She grabbed his hand. "You would have died protecting us too, wouldn't you?" "Yes," Tammin said without hesitation. "Then we are not so different after all," she said, before unconsciousness claimed her. Later, with Surima recovering in the medical wing and security tripled, Tammin sat with both sisters. Nava held one of his hands. Surima, still weak but alive, held the other. "The 30 days are almost over," Nava said softly. "What is your decision?" Tammin looked at both of them. He had come here as a reluctant participant in a desperate plan, but somewhere along the way everything had changed. "I'll do it," he said, "not because your mother commands it, not because the science requires it, but because I care about both of you and want to help save you. Let's do this together, as partners." Both princesses squeezed his hands, and for the first time since arriving, Min felt like he had made the right choice. The medical facility was unlike anything Tammin had ever seen. It combined Valyrian technology with human medical equipment that Dr. Yun Meyer had brought from Earth. Meyer was a geneticist who specialized in cross-species biology, and she had arrived with a full team to oversee the entire process. "This is unprecedented," Mer said as she reviewed the data. "We're not just creating hybrid offspring. We're potentially saving an entire civilization's genetic line. The pressure is enormous. Tell me about it." Tammin muttered. He sat in the observation room while Meyer ran another series of compatibility tests. Through the window, he could see Nava and Surima undergoing their own examinations. The process took weeks. It wasn't as simple as Empress Kiara had imagined. Human and Valyrian biology were similar enough to allow reproduction, but different enough to require careful monitoring. Meyer insisted on doing everything properly, with informed consent and medical ethics. "At every step, Your Majesty might want to rush this," me told the Empress firmly, "but I won't risk the health of anyone involved, including your daughters. We do this right or we don't do it at all." Surprisingly, the Empress accepted this. Perhaps she had learned something from watching Tammin interact with her daughters, or perhaps she simply recognized that humans, for all their primitive technology, understood some things better than Valyrians did. During the medical preparation, Tammin grew even closer to the sisters. Nava would visit him in the evenings, bringing texts on human culture she had been studying. She was fascinated by human concepts that Valerians had never developed. This word love, she said one night, holding up a translation of human poetry. It appears constantly in your literature, but the Valian language has no direct equivalent. We have words for loyalty, duty, genetic compatibility, but not this emotional connection you describe. Love is complicated, Tammin said. It's caring about someone's happiness as much as your own. It's wanting to protect them, support them, be with them even when it's difficult. Nava looked at him with those large, luminous eyes. I think I am beginning to understand this concept. When I am with you, I feel something I have never felt before. Not duty, not obligation. Something warmer. Tammin felt his heart beat faster. Nava, do not worry, she said softly, touching his face with her slender fingers. I know this is not permanent. You will leave when this is done, but I am grateful for this time. However brief it may be. Surma's approach was different. She had recovered from her wound, though it left a scar she wore with pride. She spent her time teaching Tammin about Valerian military history and tactics. In all my years, she said during one of their sessions, I have never met anyone who treated me as an equal. Everyone sees the princess, the warrior, the symbol, but you argue with me. You challenge my ideas. You tell me when you think I am wrong. Should I stop? Tammin asked. No, Surma said with what might have been a smile. Never stop. It is refreshing. It makes me feel like a person, not just a title. She paused, then added quietly, among my people, strength is measured by power and longevity, but you have shown me a different kind of strength, the strength to be vulnerable, to admit fear, to care deeply about others, even when it brings you pain. That is warrior's courage of a different sort. The procedures finally began. Meyer monitored everything carefully, combining Valerian biotechnology with human medical protocols. Both Nava and Surma conceived successfully within weeks. The hybrid embryos were developing normally, showing strong vital signs and none of the genetic errors that plagued pure Valerian offspring. The Empress was satisfied. The medical data proved the concept worked. Plans were already being made to expand the program to other noble houses, but not everyone was pleased. Lord Velerin had been quiet since the assassination attempt. Too quiet. He had been gathering support among the conservative factions, those who saw the hybrid program as cultural contamination. They believed that accepting human genetics meant accepting human ways, and that terrified them. These hybrids will destroy everything we are, Veltorin said in secret councils. They will be neither Valerian nor human. They will be something new, something that threatens our identity. We must stop this before it is too late. Meanwhile, something unexpected was happening in the palace. Tammin found himself not just caring about the sisters, but being cared for in return. Nava would check on him constantly, making sure he was comfortable, bringing him foods she thought he might enjoy. Surma appointed herself his personal guard, refusing to let him go anywhere without protection after the assassination attempt, and Lyraven, who had started this entire experiment, watched with growing confusion. She had expected a clinical procedure. She had expected to study the results objectively. She had not expected to feel jealous when she saw Tammin laughing with her sisters. What is wrong with me? She asked Hjin one day. human cultural specialist had become. Something of a confidant, I observe him. With Nava and Surima, and I feel discomfort, distress. Is this a human emotion I am experiencing? Hijan smiled knowingly. That's called jealousy, Your Highness. It means you have feelings for him too. That is illogical, Lyravan protested. I am the scientist, the observer. I cannot be emotionally involved. Too late, Hijan said. Welcome to being human, we call it catching feelings, and it happens to the best of us. The situation became more complicated when both Nava and Surima announced they wanted Taemin to stay permanently, not just as a genetic donor, but as a co-parent to their children, as a partner, as part of their family. The scandal was immediate and enormous. The Valerian court erupted in outrage. Human remaining in the palace, permanently involved in raising royal hybrid children. It was unprecedented. It was shocking. It was unacceptable. Lord Torrens saw his opportunity. He called for an emergency council session, demanding that Taemin be sent away immediately and that the hybrid pregnancies be terminated. These creatures will corrupt our entire civilization, he thundered before the assembled nobles. Already the princesses speak of human concepts like love and partnership. Already they question our ways. If we allow this to continue, we will lose everything that makes us Valerian. The Empress looked troubled. She had accepted the medical necessity of the hybrid program, but accepting humans as permanent members of the royal family, that was something else entirely. The human has served his purpose, Torren continued. Let him return to his colony with appropriate compensation. Let the princesses raise their offspring according to Valerian custom. That is the proper way. Nava stood her pregnancy beginning to show. With respect, Lord Velerin, you speak of proper ways in Valerian custom, but our customs were leading us to extinction. Taemin represents not just genetic salvation, but a new way of thinking. He has shown us that strength comes not from purity, but from diversity, not from isolation, but from connection. You speak with human words, Veltorin sneered. This proves my point. You have been contaminated. I speak with truthful words, Nava replied, and I will not apologize for learning from another culture. Surma placed her hand on her own pregnant belly. I have fought battles across the stars. I have faced enemies that would destroy us without hesitation, but I have never been as afraid as I am now. Afraid that my children will be rejected by their own people simply because they are different. The council chamber erupted in arguments. Some supported the princesses, others agreed with Torren. The Empress sat in silence, her ancient face unreadable. Then Lyra stepped forward. Mother, I began this project as a scientific experiment, but I have learned something unexpected. Excess, the hybrids will be stronger not just because of genetic diversity, but because they will be raised with values from both cultures. They will understand adaptation and tradition. They will see strength in many forms. That is what we need to survive. She paused, then added something that shocked everyone. And if the council votes to send Taemin away, I claim him for myself under right of scientific authority. He is my research subject and my responsibility. He stays. The chamber fell silent. Everyone stared at Lyravan. The proud, detached scientist had just made an emotional declaration that went against everything she represented before anyone could respond. Alarms began blaring throughout the palace. Guards rushed in, their weapons drawn. "Your Majesty," the captain of the guard shouted, "we are under attack, Lordans. Forces have seized the main gate. They demand the human be surrendered immediately, or they will take him by force." The coup had begun. Velterin smiled coldly. "You see, Your Majesty, I am not alone in my beliefs. Half the noble houses support me. Send the human away now, and this ends peacefully. Refuse and we will have civil war." Empress Chiara stood slowly. Her face was harder than diamond. "You dare threaten your empress? You dare attack this palace? I dare protect our civilization." Velterin replied, "Even from you." Surima drew her weapon. "Then you will have to go through me." The throne room exploded into chaos as loyalists and rebels began to fight, and at the center of it all, Tae Min realized that his presence had sparked something far bigger than anyone had anticipated, not just a medical solution, but a cultural revolution that would determine the future of both species. The palace was burning not with fire but with energy weapons that cut through the crystalline walls like knives through water. Torrens forces had seized the main gates and were pushing inward, determined to capture Tammin and end the hybrid program by force. Surma fought like a demon despite being pregnant. Her warriors rallied around her, defending the throne room against wave after wave of attackers. But they were outnumbered. "We need to evacuate the royal family," Captain Arval shouted over the sound of weapons fire. "The palace is lost." "Never," the Empress said coldly. "I will not flee from traitors in my own home." Tam was pressed against a wall with Hij Jin and Dr. Meyer, trying to stay out of the way. His mind raced. There had to be something he could do. He was a scientist, not a warrior, but he understood the palace systems. He had spent months studying them with Nava, the environmental controls. He said suddenly, "Nava showed me how they work. The entire palace is connected through central systems." Laring grabbed his arm. "What are you thinking? Torrens forces are using standard military communications, right? But the palace systems use quantum channels. If I can access the environmental controls, I can disrupt their communications without affecting ours. You cannot access those systems from here." Lyraven said, "The control center is 3 levels down through enemy-held territory." Lyraven, "Then I'll go there," Tam said. "That is suicide," Surima snapped, pausing in her fighting. "You are a xenobiologist, not a commando. I'm also small and fast, and no human tricks your enemies won't expect." Tammin replied, "Sura, you taught me how to move through hostile territory, remember?" Surima looked at him with something like pride mixed with fear. "I taught you too well." "Very well. Arval, give him a squad. I will take him myself," Arval said. The stern captain had softened toward humans over the months. "A small team moves faster." As they prepared to move, Hijin pulled Tammin aside. "I sent emergency signals to human space when this started. I don't know if anyone received them, but I tried." "Good thinking," Tammin said. Then he kissed her forehead. "Keep everyone safe. You come back alive, or I'll kill you myself," she replied. The journey through the palace was terrifying. Toyn's forces had secured major corridors, but Tae Min led Rival's team through service passages and maintenance tunnels that most Valyrians forgot existed. His small size was an Advantage here, allowing him to squeeze through spaces that larger warriors couldn't follow. They encountered enemy patrols 3 times. Each time Arval and her team fought with brutal efficiency. While Tammin focused on reaching the control center, he was scared beyond words, but he kept moving. Finally, they reached the environmental control room. It was unguarded because Torin hadn't thought anyone could reach it through the palace chaos. Tammin's fingers flew over the quantum interface, adjusting atmospheric pressure and electromagnetic fields throughout the palace. Within minutes, Torin's communication network began to fail. His forces lost coordination. Their carefully planned assault became chaos as squads couldn't contact each other or receive orders. "It's working," Rial said with satisfaction. "Their entire command structure is collapsing," but Tammin wasn't done. He adjusted the controls further, activating emergency systems that sealed off sections of the palace, trapping enemy forces in isolated pockets. It was human improvisation at its best, using systems in ways the designers had never intended. "You fight with chaos," Rao observed. "Just like Sarima said, chaos is what we humans do best," Tammin replied. As they made their way back to the throne room, something unexpected happened. Ships appeared in orbit above the planet. Human ships, not a full fleet, but enough to make a statement. Leading them was Admiral Li Donghyun, commander of the Human Frontier Forces. "This is Admiral Li of the Human Confederacy," his voice broadcast across all channels. "We have received reports of violence against human citizens on Velterra Prime. We are authorized to intervene to protect our people. All forces are to cease hostile action immediately." The Seven, the Empress, stared at the view screen in shock. "How did they know?" "I told them," Higgin said calmly. "The moment fighting started, I sent emergency signals. Humanity protects its own." It was humanity's first major intervention in galactic affairs. The small primitive species that everyone had dismissed was suddenly showing military presence. The heart of the Valyrian Empire. Veltorin's forces began to falter. They had signed up for a coup against a divided palace, not a war with an alien species backed by orbital support. As coordination collapsed and human ships, threatened from above, rebel nobles began to surrender. Veltorin himself was captured trying to flee the palace. He was brought before the Empress in chains, his face twisted with rage. "You have destroyed us," he spat. "You have polluted our bloodline with alien DNA. History will judge you as the Empress who ended Valyrian purity. History will judge me as the Empress who saved us from extinction." Kiara replied coldly. "Take him to the detention center. He will stand trial for treason." In the aftermath of the coup, the palace slowly returned to order. The damage was significant but repayable. More importantly, something fundamental had changed in Valyrian society. 3 months later, Nava gave birth to a daughter. The birth was carefully monitored by both Valyrian and human medical teams. When the infant emerged, everyone held their breath. She was beautiful. She had her mother's elegant features and luminous eyes, but her skin tone was somewhere between Valyrian shimmer and human warmth. She had hair which Valyrians lacked, but it was fine and silvery like starlight. "She's perfect," Nava whispered, tears streaming down her face as she held her daughter. Tammin stood beside her, his own eyes wet. What would you name her? Dr. Meyer asked. Nava clears throat. Looked at Tammin. I want to combine our cultures and human tradition, you suggested Yuna. In Valerian I would add the suffix of for nobility. Yunara does this please you? It's beautiful. Tammin said, just like her mother. Tay no, medical clears throat scans of Yunara showed exactly what Lyraven had predicted. The infant had valiant traits like enhanced senses and the potential for long life, but also human adaptability and genetic resilience. Most importantly, she showed none of the genetic errors that plagued pure Valerian children. 2 weeks later, Surma gave birth to twin daughters. The births were more difficult befitting Surma's warrior nature, but both infants were healthy and strong. She named them Mina and Sujin, combining Korean names with Valerian suffixes to become Minara and Sujinal. The 3 hybrid princesses became instant symbols of the new era, the Empress holding her granddaughters for the first time felt something she hadn't experienced in centuries, hope. They are the future, she said softly. Both species combined into something new. At a formal ceremony weeks later, the Empress made several announcements that shocked the galaxy. First, she declared humans to be equals under Valerian law, not primitives but partners. Second, she established a formal alliance between the Valerian Empire and human space with technology and cultural exchanges to benefit both. Third, she invited other Valerian houses to participate in the hybrid program with strict ethical guidelines, developed jointly by human and Valian experts. But the biggest surprise came when she turned to Tammin. Cantamin, she said formally, you came here as a simple biologist. You have become something far more important. You have changed not just our genetics but our understanding of what it means to be strong. I offer you a permanent position as humanity's first ambassador to Veltara Prime, and as a recognized co-parent to the hybrid princesses. Tammin looked at Nava and Surma, both holding their daughters. He looked at Lyravan, who watched him with open emotion. Now he thought about Earth, about his old life, about everything he had left behind. Your Majesty, he said slowly, I accept, but not just as an ambassador. I want to build a real bridge between our peoples. A school where human and Valian children learn together, research programs that combine our knowledge, cultural exchanges that help us understand each other. Ambitious, the Empress said, but she was smiling. Very well, you shall have your bridge. Years passed. The hybrid program expanded carefully with volunteers from both species, creating a new generation that combined the best of both worlds. The school that Tammin founded became famous, producing scientists and diplomats who understood multiple perspectives. The 3 hybrid princesses grew up surrounded by love and learning. Yunara inherited her mother's scientific brilliance and her father's curiosity about the universe. Minara and Sujinal were warriors like their mother, but fought with human tactical creativity that made them unbeatable. Tammin remained with Navara and Surma, their unconventional family working better than anyone had expected. And El Raven, who had started everything, finally admitted her own feelings and joined their household, creating an even more unusual arrangement that somehow felt right. On the 10th anniversary of the first hybrid birth, Tammin stood in the palace gardens with his daughters playing around him. Admiral Lee had come for the celebration, bringing representatives from dozens of human worlds. You did it, Lee said quietly. You didn't just save one species, you changed the entire galaxy's view of humanity. I just followed the science, Tamman said, and learned that sometimes the best solutions come from combining different perspectives. Tamman 7, Yunara ran up to him, her silvery hair catching the light of the three suns. Papa, come see. Minara and Sujanal are trying to teach human children Valerian combat forms. But they keep improvising. That's what hybrids do, Tam said, scooping her up. We improvise, we adapt, we combine the old with the new and create something better. He looked across the garden at Nava and Surima, both watching their daughters with pride, at Luraven, who was explaining genetic sequences to a group of fascinated students at High Jin, now serving as deputy ambassador and still documenting everything for the historical record. Humanity had come to the stars as the youngest species, the primitives that others dismissed, but in their diversity, their adaptability, and their fundamental belief that all people deserved respect, they had something powerful to offer. And as the hybrid children played in the garden, mixing Valerian grace with human enthusiasm, Tamman knew that the future belonged to those who could bridge divides, combined strengths, and see possibility where others saw only difference. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly as it should be. Silence. The Empress's command shook the walls. The council fell quiet immediately. Continue. My daughter Lyraven displayed new data. I have studied every species in the known galaxy. Most are genetically incompatible with us. Those that are compatible lack the diversity we need. But there is one species that possesses exactly what we require. She paused. Humans. The laughter was instant and cruel. Humans were primitives, barely capable of faster than light travel. They had only discovered their first alien species 60 years ago. They were short-lived, chaotic, and considered barely civilized. By galactic standards, you cannot be serious, Lord Torrens said. Those creatures live less than 100 years. They war among themselves constantly. They are animals compared to us. They are survivors. Elraven corrected. Their DNA is incredibly diverse, even within a single family group. Humans show more genetic variation than our entire noble class. They adapt to new diseases, new environments, new challenges with shocking speed. Their genome is what biologists call robust, full of redundancies and backup systems. She displayed comparison charts. A Valerian genetic profile shows 99.7% similarity between any two nobles. 2 random humans show only 99.1% similarity. That tiny difference represents millions of variations that give them strength. When we combine their DNA with ours, early models show the hybrid offspring would have the Valerian traits we value, but with human adaptability and resilience. The Empress studied the data with ancient, calculating eyes. You have tested this theory in laboratory conditions? Yes. Using preserved genetic samples and artificial methods, the results are promising, but we need real-world confirmation. Elraven's voice dropped. My sisters Nava and Surima both show early signs of genetic degradation. Within 10 years, they may begin experiencing cascade failures. They need this solution. Now the chamber fell Silent, everyone knew the princesses. Nava was brilliant, a quantum physicist who had solved problems that stumped entire research teams. Surima commanded a fleet squadron and had never lost a battle. The thought of losing them was unthinkable. You propose bringing a human here to the palace? Lady Renalta looked horrified. For what purpose? Exactly. Lyraven met her mother's eyes. For procreation. We need a human male with the best genetic profile. He will father children. With Nava and Surima, if the hybrids are healthy, we can expand the program to the entire noble class. Absolutely not. Lord Velterin shouted, this is an abomination. You would pollute our bloodline with primitive genes. Our bloodline is already dying, Lurven said. Coldly, I offer a cure. The Empress raised one hand and silence fell again. She looked at her daughter. For a long moment, you truly believe this will work? I stake my reputation on it. Mother, the science is sound. Then you have 60 cycles to acquire a suitable human male. You will bring him here and we will proceed with your experiment. The Empress's voice grew hard, but no. This, Lyraven, if you fail, if this human proves unsuitable, or if the offspring are damaged, you will bear full responsibility. Your position, your title, your very place in this family will be forfeit. Lion bowed deeply. I understand and accept these terms. As the council dismissed, Lyra then returned to her laboratory. Her assistant brought her files on thousands of human genetic profiles collected from medical databases across human space. She needed someone young, healthy, intelligent, and compatible. Someone who would not die of shock when presented with this task. Someone strong enough to survive what she was about to ask of him. She worked through the night, reviewing profile after profile. Dawn was breaking over the crystal spires of the palace when she found him. Kang Te Min, age 28, xenobiologist stationed at a human research colony called New Busausen. His genetic markers were exceptional. His medical history showed remarkable immune responses and rapid healing. His psychological profile indicated adaptability and strong ethical principles. Lyraven studied his picture. He looked so young, so fragile compared to Valyrians. Could this short-lived human really be the salvation of her ancient bloodline? There was only one way to find out. She called for her ship to be prepared. Within hours, she was traveling through the void toward the human frontier, carrying the hopes of her dying civilization with